Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to episode 2 of the Life and Times of David Berkowitz. Joining me again is the awesome Neo. What
How's
up?
it going, Rena?
All the better from hearing from you, my friend, and I'm looking forward to this episode because we're delving deeper, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm just going to follow the footsteps of Berkowitz.
Well, in the last episode, we went over David's early years. Finding out he was adopted at the age of 5. He was told his mum died giving birth to him. His adopted mum, Pearl, dies when he's 14, shattering his life. His dad, Nate, ends up remarrying, much to David's dismay. David goes into the army, comes out, starts looking for his birth dad, realizing that there's a chance that Betty's still alive. Finds Betty, he's really disappointed in her. Finds out he's got a half-sister, Rosalind. Then he finds out his childhood sweetheart, Iris, has gotten married. And that's when things kind of start spiraling, don't they, Neo?
Right. A lot of resentment here from the army. He's feeling abandonment. His family gone. No friends around. Iris has gotten married. His mom is not his mom. Really doesn't take it in like that. So yeah, he's down and down. Nothing but down right here.
Yeah, it only goes down from here on out, doesn't it?
Right.
75 was a big year for David, wasn't it?
Right. And it's funny you needed to fill that in at the end and really see how it all went down and caused him to behave the way he did. It's nuts. If we filled that in near the end, all this stuff.
Well, we left off on December 8th, 1975. Berkowitz wrote a letter to his father telling him to enjoy his life and to take care of his family.
Yeah, this was a letter he wrote on December 8th, 1975. And it's like his giving up letter actually to his father. He says, "Dearest Dad, be strong, enjoy your life as best as you can. You have worked hard all your life to help your family survive. You have done very well, and you should be proud. Now, you deserve a rest. So, please, remain in good health for all your days. Take good care of Julia. Stay in touch with my sister and brother-in-law, Aunt Bay and Uncle Lou, and Hal and Susan. Love, David." So here he sends a letter to his father, and it's he's given up, in a sense, letter to his father.
Well, on December 24th, 1975, Berkowitz stabbed 2 girls on 2 different occasions, but he did not kill them.
Right. He, on Christmas Eve there, it's not a coincidence, here we are on God's day. I feel he did this on purpose on that day with his resentment towards God. He decided to strike on this day. It's the only date in all his running around he has an action on the same. The next Christmas Eve, he shoots the Nettle dog.
Yep.
So here he starts going back to his old residence, and I think he started getting a little emotional too from it. But he did bring out a knife to stab 2 girls, and I just want to go over the reading with that because he describes it with Klausner. Okay. Berkowitz drove slowly, but with confidence. He knew these streets. Nate Berkowitz's old apartment at Co-op City had been the final setting of the only semblance of adult family life that David would know. He was looking for a woman alone. He could not later explain rationally why he was looking for a solitary woman. He believed, however, that he had been hearing voices and that these voices were demons whose commands he had to obey or face the most awful retribution. David was raised as a conservative Jew, but he changed his faith when he was 21 years old and announced that he had become a born-again Baptist. He believed in God and Satan and heaven and hell. He had also seen the movie called The Exorcist. As David recaptures that bitter Christmas Eve, he says again and again that he was doing nothing more than what the demon voices commanded. He saw a woman alone on Co-op City Boulevard. She looked middle-aged. The demon voices had told him to kill a woman who was young. He slowed the Ford and stared at the woman and listened. The demon voices were silent. David drove on, slipping one hand to his waist to make certain the hunting knife was still secure. He now began driving in a looping pattern, following Co-op City Boulevard, past the height windows of the Co-op City supermarket, around to Baychester Avenue and back again. He was waiting to see the right person and hear the voices. On David's third pass on the wide boulevard, he saw a woman leave the supermarket for the comparative darkness of the street. She wore a long, heavy navy blue wool coat, its collar turned up against the cold. David could not see her features, but suddenly he heard demon voices croaking, "Get her." His excitement was overwhelmed by fright. He must obey or face the merciless anger of the demons. He double-parked the Ford, cut the engine, and locked the door. Then, in an ambling shuffle, he hurried after the woman ahead of him. Close to her now, he reached for his knife. She was to be sacrificed, the demon voices cried. David heard the demons say they wanted to drink her blood. He lifted the hunting knife and anchored it downward, striking the unknown woman in the mid-back. He struck again, and he could feel the knife blade tear her heavy coat. "I had a job to do," David said later, "and I was doing it." A single street lamp glowed 30 feet from Berkowitz as he pounded the hunting knife at the woman's back. "I stabbed her," he said, "and she didn't do anything. She just turned and looked at me." In the dim Christmas Eve light, David saw that woman was Hispanic. His fervid knife thrust could not have hurt her very much. At first, she did not scream in pain or cry. But after the woman had turned and saw a hulking figure with a raised knife, terror embraced her. She began to wail in fright. "It was terrible," David said. "She was screaming pitiful, and I didn't know what the hell to do. It wasn't like the movies. In the movies, you sneak up on someone and they fall down quietly, dead. It wasn't like that. She was staring at my knife and screaming. She wasn't dying." The woman dropped her packages of groceries, which spilled onto the pavement. Trying to defend herself, she groped for David's large, soft body. Her screams were making David sick. He was not sure if the knife had penetrated her heavy coat. "There was so much confusion," he said later, "and the screams were getting me scared." Panicked, Berkowitz ran away from the woman and away from his double-parked Ford. Later, he told the psychiatrist that he could not understand why the woman had screamed so. "I wasn't going to rob her or touch her or rape her. I just wanted to kill her." No one knows who this woman was or what she did next or even how badly she was injured. She never reported the assault to the police. She never checked herself into the hospital. Probably she never even had knife wounds treated by a private physician. Most doctors, any responsible doctor, would inform the police that there was evidence of a stabbing. Police legends are bare of any such report for the night of December 24th, 1975. Presumably, the woman returned to her home and survived. Nobody knows with certainty. Nobody knows her name. In the first pattern of what would become his ghastly modus operandi, Berkowitz had attacked a total stranger. David found himself painting at a steel chain link fence that divides Co-op City from the New York State Thruway on the west. He braced himself and tried to catch his breath. Tossing his head, he saw a familiar building a block away, 170 Dressier Loop. He and his forefather, David Berkowitz, had moved into that building in June of 1967. After the foster mother, Pearl Berkowitz, died of cancer. From the ground, David tried to find the windows of the old apartment, number 17B. In the dark, it was hard to count the lights, to count the floors. He wanted to find the apartment, but he could not. Cars glowing a block away along the thruway. It was inconsolably lonely. David thought, and the demons, they had demanded a victim's blood, and he had failed. They would seek him out now, in his life or the next. They would find him. They would be unforgiven. Damnation. David ran around the block toward the thruway. He saw another woman approaching from out of the darkness. She was younger and attractive. The knife was still in David's hand. He concealed it within the denim jacket and stared after the second woman as she approached a pedestrian bridge that crossed the roadway. In the coldness of the bitter night, sweat streamed down David's face. He resumed his lumbering murderous shuffle. He would attack her from behind. Michelle Foreman, a 15-year-old sophomore at Truman High School, had reached the very center of the bridge when Berkowitz caught her. Michelle first felt the stabbing pain in her head. The knife then struck her upper body 3 times. She grabbed the bridge railing to keep her balance and turned to look at her attacker. Blood splurted from her head. David struck twice at Michelle Foreman's face. She was a pretty girl, David would say. He looked at her, thinking, why aren't you dead? Fighting for her life, Michelle Foreman lashed at David's face. Then she lost her footing and fell to the concrete walkway. In agony and terror, Michelle withheld and rolled and shrieked. Traffic continued to growl from the thruway below. I never heard anyone scream like that, David said. The way she screamed constantly. I kept stabbing and nothing would happen. She kept fighting harder and screaming more. I didn't know. I just ran off. Badly wounded, Michelle Foreman still tried to clutch her attacker's legs. She wanted to see his face, to know who he was, but David ran off. Michelle struggled to her feet and was able to note that Berkowitz ran with a sluggish gait. She would not catch him. She had lost so much blood that the high building of the co-op city appeared to spin. She stumbled and lurched toward the closest building, where she lived with her parents. Michelle reached for the lobby buzzer that would alert her family. Before she could press it, she fainted. So you see here, he stabs these two girls on Christmas Eve. I think there was a lot of emotion there, definitely, again, on God's Day. He had told the police after he got arrested that he did this. And as you see, they couldn't track down the other stabbing. It was never reported. But they do have Michelle Foreman's name. She must have reported it. So when he got arrested, he told the police about it. They matched it up, what happened to her. Ended up talking to her, but she did not want to identify him. She was saying she wasn't sure if it was him. So he never got charged with that stabbing. That's why you don't see him charged with that.
Well, yeah, he also tells Jack Jones that, he found the stabbings too personal. It was too up close, wasn't it?
See, it's a lot harder doing that, and he didn't get it done than just shooting somebody from a distance.
Yeah. So that's obviously why he changed to the gun, right?
I would say so, yeah.
On January 24th, 1976, Wheat Carr had property stolen from the trunk of her car that was parked in a garage. The garage was open, but there was forced entry into the trunk.
Right. And Berkowitz is not living in Yonkers at that time. You're just showing this because there was stuff going around Wicker that we have here that we kind of want people to see, because that's why the cops were a little drawn off of trying to find a suspect. So we kind of want to show you that also.
On January the 26th, 1976, Berkowitz purchased a .45 caliber Commando Mark III semi-automatic carbine for $152.50 from Barbara Rutello of Empire Gun and Coin Store at 5th Avenue and 56th Street in the Bay Ridge section of Brooklyn. At that time, Berkowitz produced a validated New York firearms permit. And also around this time, Doberman was shot at Barnes Avenue and killed.
Right. They never found out who did it, but Berkowitz admitted he did it. There was a superintendent that worked at his building who lived a couple streets over on Holland that owned dogs. And in the back of Berkowitz's building, he had a patch of grass that the superintendent used to bring his dogs to play in, because there wasn't much grass there. I was checking a lot of the area around there around that time, anything I could. It could have been, but that's a reason why I think the superintendent was bringing his dogs there, and the dogs were bothering Berkowitz. So, yeah, he shoots. This is the first time you see him shooting a dog that is supposedly bothering him.
Well, I think he was practicing on dogs, to be honest, and then he upgraded to humans.
Well, I'm not sure. I do think he was being bothered by these dogs, and
I think he got confident from shooting them.
And don't forget, too, this is happening after the stabbing. I think when the stabbing happened, it was hard for him to sleep, and it really affected him a lot because he couldn't turn back. He couldn't go back. He had done that, and his battle with God and Satan's going on, and he can't escape his guilt. So I think that's may have where a lot of the stuff was rooting from. Again, we see him using the firearms after that, shooting the dog, and I think that his guilt was bothering him a lot at this time. The stabbings were something he couldn't get away from. I
also wonder if he was imagining dogs barking during the night, if it wasn't really happening, but in his mind it was. Like they were like echoing through his mind, and he thought they were really out there barking. And
that would go under if he was sick or not, what problems he had.
Yeah.
Huh.
On February 18th, 1976, Berkowitz moved into a second-floor apartment in a private house at 174 Coligny Avenue, New Rochelle, which was owned by Jack and Nan Cassara.
Right. And you see him going to New Rochelle. Again, I think the stabbings were what made him get out of the Bronx. I think he was just trying to run. So he goes to New Rochelle to just get away from there and try and start over in this new town. And again, as we see, they have dogs there that end up bothering him also. He has a night shift. Again, the stabbings, I think, are bothering his sleep and everything else. These dogs are bothering him that the Cassara's on.
Well, again, I mentioned killer tapes. They say, when he arrived to look at the house and look at the room, he said to Nan, I don't like dogs. He could clearly see there was dogs there.
Right.
But for some reason, he still took the room. Unless they told him, the dogs aren't really that noisy. They'll be fine.
Maybe he didn't really have plans on staying there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
On February 28th, 1976, Berkowitz purchased a .22 caliber Glenfield Model 60 long rifle. Right, so he's building his arsenal, isn't he?
Yeah, this is his third gun now, right? He has a shotgun, and he purchased a 45. Now he's getting a 22.
Yep. He's got 3 guns, a selection of knives. So he's building his arsenal.
Right.
In March of 1976, Richie Speranza stated he met David Berkowitz and knew him until May of 1977.
Right. Speranza's another person to look into. He's the only person in all my files in case that you could say was with Berkowitz during the shooting. So I tend to have him in here just to look at his movements also. I definitely don't think he was involved in anything. He was cleared, but just throwing out a person that was with him during the shootings.
On March 19th, 1976, Margaret Dioguardi at 22 Wicker Street had stones thrown through her front window by unknown youths in the area.
Right. Again, Berkowitz is not there yet. This is in Yonkers. I'm just trying to point out some of the stuff that was going around Wicker.
On March 27th, 1976, Berkowitz applied for an apartment at 35 Pine Street, Yonkers.
Right. You see, he's trying to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
He's at the Cassara's. I don't know if he meant to stay there for a long time, but maybe the dogs would bother him. He went looking for another place. But here you see he's applying to get out of there, a month and a half later?
So he was there for 2 months. I mean, that's no time at all, is it?
February 18th? Yeah, it was.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 months, yep.
On April 4th, 1976, around 4 a.m., David Berkowitz is bothered by 2 German shepherds owned by his landlord, the Cassaras. He leaves the Cassara home after arguing with Stephen Cassara and returns a few days later.
Right. And a couple of days before this is when he got accepted into Pine Street. So he knew he was leaving, right? And then that was on the 1st of April. So the 4th comes, he's had it. He knows he's moving.
Yeah.
So something upset him at 4 in the morning, and he storms out of the house, starts yelling in the driveway. Stephen gets in his face, and he takes off. That's the last time they had a conversation with him or anything.
Yep. Well, on April 8th, 1976, David Berkowitz returns to the Cassara home to retrieve the rest of his belongings. He had no conversation with the Cassaras and was never seen again by them.
Right. So I think he may have been allowed into Pine Street around this time,
mm-hmm.
and was getting the rest of his heavy stuff. Maybe he had someone come there and help him, or I don't know, but he was getting the rest of his stuff out of the apartment there. Nan doesn't talk to him, doesn't say anything, but that she's seen him come get the rest of his stuff, and that was it.
On April 15th, 1976, Berkowitz moved into apartment 7E at 35 Pine Street, Yonkers, New York. Berkowitz at this time drove a yellow with black top, 4-doored sedan, 1970 Ford Galaxy, registered with license plate 561 XLB.
Right. Here's his entrance into Yonkers. His now I think trying again. This is a top floor, nobody above him, apartment overlooking the river. I think he's trying to better his life here. Okay, I think he may have a new start here. He's thinking maybe he's trying, and he moves into Pine Street in Yonkers.
Well, shortly after that, 18 Wicker Street starts getting threatening letters. I'm going to burn your house down.
Right. He starts getting bothered by a dog at 18 Wicker, and he's telling them to shut the dog up. Same kind of thing as what happens later with Sam. We never seen the letter. It was ripped up, burned. But yeah, this is where he's starting to send letters to his neighbors. Again, as we've seen it before, to the other lady at Barnes, he's mailing out letters to the neighbors around him that are bothering him.
On May 13th, 1976, at 3:30 a.m., there was a small fire to the exterior of a 3-story framed house at 18 Wicker Street, owned by Joaquin Neto. The fire was caused by someone throwing a Molotov cocktail at the second floor window. Firefighters responded and extinguished the fire. Police officers Jesse Taylor and Kelsey Ho, as well as Detective Mike Lorenzo and Edward Oakley, responded to the scene and investigated the arson.
Right, so he sent the letter prior. The dog wasn't stopping, so he decided to try and light the house on fire. Now, when I first found the letters that I found, it's the first time I'm coming across the name Joaquin Goncalo with an N. And it wasn't in just one letter, so it wasn't a misspelling. And we hadn't heard of this guy before. So I called up Sylvia. And I asked Sylvia, did you have a guy named Joaquin Goncalo living in your house? She says, no, Joaquin with an M. He lived up on the 3rd floor. So I said, are you sure his name was not with an N? She says, no, it's with an M. So sitting there, and he doesn't misspell it in one letter. It's in all of them. So I look back in the phone book, and the only name addressed to 18 Wicker was Joaquin with an N, Goncalo. This helped me prove that that's how Berkowitz was getting names out of the phone book for people to bother, because he was spelling Joaquin's name the way it was in the phone book. So, and that also backed up Wheat's stuff saying that that's where John Wheaties came from. So that was crazy to find, because then it also shows you that Berkowitz wasn't even bothering the Netos. He was bothering Joaquin Goncalo because he was the only name in the phone book listed to that. Again, if you go back to my last video, the Netos didn't have their name in the phone book because there was something that happened and they didn't want their family to be bothered. So he took his family out of the phone book. So the only one there was Joaquin Goncalo, and that is why Berkowitz uses his name, and he's part of the devil cult, not the Netos, that Berkowitz forms when he first gets there. 18 Wicker is his main target. It's that dog that's bothering him, and it's Joaquin Goncalo that's listed in the phone book that he thinks he's after. It's not even the Netos.
That's some great detective work on your part, Neo, because I don't think anyone else could have worked that out.
Well, again, you had to have the letters to do it, because you had to see, again, this guy was brought to you through the letters. He wasn't in the investigation to the letters. And then when you talk to Sylvia and she says it's Joaquin, and then you notice it's misspelled in the phone book, and he's using it like that, he used the phone book.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, he didn't even know of the Netos. His target was 18 Wicker when he first moved to Yonkers, and it was Joaquin Goncalo that he was after. And the Goncalos don't know anything of him. I visited them. I've talked to them a few times. They are immigrants, and they don't really speak English. They know nothing. They don't even know they were involved in this story.
Great work. Great work on your part, dude. On May 15th, 1976, there was a report of shots fired at 35 Pine Street. Police officers Dennis Shane and Guido Fiorelli investigated this complaint, which was made by an anonymous telephone call.
Right. And I found the police report to this, and the police went there and talked to the residents on the floors. Nobody in the building. This was reported as shots fired in the building. Nobody in the building heard shots fired. Okay, so this was a prank call, I feel, by Berkowitz to bother the police to come to the building.
Wow. May 26, 1976, David leaves for Texas and Florida.
Right. He starts to go. He wants to go visit his dad in Florida, and that's the day he starts. Yep.
So that night he slept in Washington, D.C. in a parking garage.
Right, in his car. Yep.
May 27th, he goes through Arlington, Virginia, and visits the cemetery and slept in a motel in North Carolina. The 28th, David slept on the shoulder of Georgia Highway 204. Also on May 28th, Wheatcar states she observed 3 young black males tampering with her car. One of the youths struck her with a board. She entered the car, and as she pulled away, the youth struck her car.
Again, showing you stuff going around in Wicker. And, I know she says it was 2 black males, so it's not Berkowitz. But again, Berkowitz was not there. As you see, he's driving. Mm-hmm. There's stuff going on in Wicker.
On the 29th, he slept in another motel. The 30th, he reached Boynton Beach, Florida to stay with his father. He stays for a total of 5 days. And on June 4th, he leaves for Texas and spends the night in Lafayette, Louisiana. June 5th, he arrives in Houston and meets with Army buddy Billy Dan Parker, in which he alternates between staying in a hotel and staying at Billy's. June 11th, sees the movie Taxi Driver. The next day, he gets the 44.
Right. Seeing the movie Taxi Driver was big because he goes and sees that movie, and it's him. If you ever watch that movie after researching this case and Berkowitz, it's amazing the feeling you get. Like, how could he have watched this? Because it's so identical to his life of a guy coming out of the Army, abandoned. He's negative. He doesn't get along with girls. He's writing stuff in his apartment. He's living in an apartment like his. It's just really like him. The girl in there, his name is Iris. It's really makes him feel like he was meant to see this movie like this. Like God is really, these coincidences are not coincidences. It's not a coincidence that movie is exactly like him. So he's bugging out when he sees this movie, and it kind of pushes him to be a taxi driver and act in a way that the taxi driver did.
Well, yeah, they both suffered from insomnia, both worked long night shifts, outcasts, living in a cramped apartment. Yeah. Iris.
Very next day, he goes and gets the 44.
And the movie had such an impact on him. When he got back from Texas, he went to see it 2 more times at a movies in New Rochelle.
Yeah.
It had, he wanted to see it again and again.
There's a crazy resemblance. If you read the Breslin letter, it fits a part of the movie that's very eerie. It's just big resemblance of Berkowitz, that movie.
Well, the same day he buys the 44, the 12th, he leaves. He leaves that very day.
Yeah.
I mean, he's out. He gets home on the 14th, right? So
he gets back on the 14th, right?
So he basically was away for what, about 3 weeks?
I think 2 weeks, is it?
Yep.
Not too sure. Yeah,
on June 29th, 1976, Berkowitz quit his job as a security guard. Right.
He comes back, does 2 more weeks as the security guard, and he quits.
In July of 1976, Berkowitz began working for the Co-op City Taxi Company.
Right. He goes and gets a job as a taxi driver. He's got the gun now. Then he wants the job, and now he's got everything. He's just like the movie now.
In July of 1976, the Neto family began to receive phone calls to their house complaining about their dog and that the Queen was living on their top floor. The caller was also asking for Sylvia, Joachim Neto's daughter.
Right. So he's bothering the Netos, and you see he knows Sylvia's name. People don't understand the woods that are right by their houses. They were wide open houses too, and I'm sure he heard them calling Sylvia's name. So that's how I feel he knew Sylvia's name, to be saying it to him over the phone.
On July 6, 1976, Berkowitz...
Hold on 1 second. I just want to point out, I don't know how he got the Neto's number, because again, he has Joachim's number. Right. So now he couldn't speak English, Joachim. Remember that.
Nope.
So I'm just guessing maybe he called Joachim and Joachim directed him to the owner of the dog. So you wanted Joaquin downstairs maybe and gave him that number because it wasn't his dog. Remember, it was Joaquin Neto's dog that was bothering Berkowitz. He just had Joaquin's number. So really, that's the only thing I could kind of come up with, because how did he get the Neto's number then? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I can't figure out or tell you, but somehow he was calling them.
On July 6, 1976, Berkowitz attempted the first attack using his .44 Bulldog revolver. 2 girls in the driveway of a house on the corner of Lake Avenue and Nepperham Avenue in Yonkers were his target.
Right. This is the first time. See, he's got the .44. This is the first time he goes out to use it. It's in Yonkers, by his apartment on Lake and Nepperham. I'm going to see if I could find it in the book right here. I just want to read it where he is. Okay. Let's see right here. Insomnia often contributes to depression, just as depression often contributes to insomnia. On Tuesday evening, July 6, 1976, David decided he could not lie sleepless and cooped up for another night. Voices, he says, urged him to act. The Charter Bulldog .44 lured him to the dresser top where it lay. He stuffed the gun into a paper bag. It was a hot, damp night, and David slipped on a clean blue and white sports shirt over his jeans. Then, carrying the gun in the bag, he began cruising. He followed the sloping Yonkers streets, Greenvale, Nepperham Avenue, and drove south to the corner of Nepperham and Lake. He looked about constantly at the people he passed. He was waiting for some kind of signal to use the gun. It would be less difficult to shoot people than to knife them, but he says he did not think shooting would be easy. For all his months in service, and despite his sharpshooter's medal with the M16, David had never fired a gun at a human being. Where Nepperham and Lake Avenue met, a car in front of the Galaxy made a right turn. He saw 2 girls inside. Apparently, they were returning from a happy evening. David heard voices commanding, "Get them." He felt reluctant. He says he did not want to kill. He says he tried to resist his compulsion, but he followed the young women's car. They pulled into a driveway. David parked farther down. He threw open his own car door and stepped out carrying the paper bag that held his pistol. He ran in his heavy, lumbering way to the driveway. The girls were gone. No one knows their identity to this day. Presumably, they are alive and unaware that no more than seconds saved them from murder. So, yeah, I wanted to point out that was his first time trying to go out and use the .44 he purchased. And that was in Yonkers, a few blocks from where he lived. And I visited that spot with you, and I show you that there was a staircase there. He could have parked up there. Obviously, from reading there, I don't think that's what he did. I think I could have been wrong with that, because that was a 2-way street back then. It's a 1-way now. You have to remember that. So when he went up that street, it doesn't sound like he went to where I thought. I think he drove up more and then came back down.
Yeah, those steps were like a perfect escape route, weren't they?
I couldn't think of anything better than that. But again, I go by what it says. And he made a right and went up and then got out. And
David wasn't doing drive-bys, was he?
No.
He was parking around the block, wasn't he? Sometimes blocks and blocks away.
Yeah. And I kind of want to stop it there again. Not to hold back anything or make any
we've got a lot to go.
Now we're kind of getting into the Son of Sam that everybody knows. The shootings and stuff. Right there, we laid down a lot of stuff as far as what led him in the direction that you're going to see him in. So,
well, you can see the pattern here. Like, he sees the movie, gets the gun, and then freaking tries to take a human life in July.
Yeah, and he says it too. He does a big interview with him saying how much influence Taxi Driver was to him.
He never tried to shoot at a human being before July 1976.
That's what is said there.
No,
he did not. Ever, not even in the Army.
Definitely not in April 1976. We have got a lot to go over, dude, and we are going to leave it there.
Okay, I'm cool with that.
Because as in the next episode, episode 3, that's when we start on July 29th, 1976, a day that's ingrained in everybody's mind, right?
The Son of Sam, everybody knows, but we got a lot of fill-ins with it. There's a lot of gaps in there that a lot of people don't know. That's what we're going to be filling in for you.
All right. Well, thank you so much as ever, Neo. And, look out for episode 3 after this. Like I say, we got a lot.
Yeah. Thank you, too. Be good.
All right. Take care.